All right, guys, we're doing data exfiltration task 9, exfiltration via DNS. All right, so for task 8, it provides you some instructions if you wanted to do this over your attack box. This is one of the rare occurrences. Again, I say do not use your own attack box, use the one that's provided by them. The reason being is because when you're getting into Active Directory or anything that requires DNS, it's going to require that if you're using your attack box that you have to input the DNS resolution for the IP address to the host name. Okay, that can become time consuming. And so to avoid that, just use their machine, because when you connect to their machines, you don't have to do that. It's a lot easier. And I don't want to spend too much time messing with that, right? I want to focus on learning, getting the flag, moving on, and continuing my journey. So I recommend don't follow these. Just go ahead and once the DNS configuration works, resolve the flag them.com domain name. So because we're already connected, you simply just go ahead and start the attack box, open up terminal if you're really set on I need this flag, and then just pretty much all you need to do is do a command dig plus short. Actually, I think you should just be able to. Okay, so actually, yeah, sure, I'll show you how to do this. So we'll go up a little bit here. You can see here they provide us a jump box and a victim box. So they just want us to SSH into the jump box. So I'm going to SSH into the jump box, and if you don't know, the jump box is going to be when you start task 2, it's going to be that IP address. So you can just SSH into that. SSH THM 10.10.215.78. Okay, and then it's asking for the password, which is TRYHACKME, because they provided that in task 2. And then from there, you do the DNS resolution, right? Don't do it from, if you really want to do it from your own attack box, which I told you, don't do it from your own attack box. Use the one that's provided by them. The DNS just it's time consuming trying to resolve all those IP addresses, really. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to do a dig command on this flag here. So dig. All right. And let me see if I could just run their command here. Short flag.them.com. See if it returns anything. Yeah, see, so return 17.20.0.120. So I take that IP address, and then that's going to be my flag for this first task. Now, just to save you the burden, okay, so the DNS resolver, we can actually change it. That's what they're telling us here, so that we can actually change and we can input DNS records. So in the real world, you would have a Windows 2012, 2016, 19 server that usually handles DNS. And from there, you can actually add entries. You can add AAA records. You can add text records. You get MX records. In this case, we're just doing it through this GUI. Why? Because it's easy. So essentially, we're going to be using this GUI later on, and I'll show you. But if you're planning to do this from your own attack box, you're going to have to ensure that your attack box is able to resolve these IP addresses for the machines that you're going to be accessing. It's a little time consuming, but if you really want to go through that, you can go ahead. But do take in mind they state here clearly that they don't recommend that you do it from your own attack box as well. So note that the IP address jump box. So even though you can use the attack box for this room, we recommend using the jump box for most parts. And yeah, so I'm just going to go ahead and use their attack box. And whenever you're using their attack box, you're going to SSH into the jump box, right? Jump box is going to give you that initial foothold into their network, and then it's going to allow you to jump to other machines from there perform DNS queries within their network, making it a lot easier because it's already resolved to their network, right? So that's that. Let's move on to the next one. All right, task 9. So you guys can look here, and we're gonna collect the first 2 flags. So the DNS protocol has a limitation that needs to be taken into consideration as which of the following. So essentially, when you're sending or you're creating DNS entries, there's a consideration here that the protocol has a max length of a fully qualified domain name. So that's like www.tryhackme.com, and it has to be up to 255 characters, right? So, or that's the maximum. So after 256 characters, you'll be surpassing the max length, and it won't send all the data that you need it to send. So a subdomain name length must not exceed 63 characters. So if you're creating a subdomain length DNS entry, then it can't exceed 63 characters. So that's something to take into consideration as we're exfilling data from the DNS protocol. And then they have this fancy diagram, shows an attacker who's maybe compromised this machine down here, and they want to exfil data. So what they do is that they will create a entry in DNS that will have the, let's just scroll down here a little bit. They'll have the TX equal to text value, okay? And so when you resolve script.tunnel.com, the TX value of that will be the data, right? So if you know what DNS is, it resolves IPs to host names, right? So if you have an IP address and you want to figure out what's the host name, then you could do that. But it does other things amongst that as well. It does mailboxes like MXs, mail exchanges, and everything. So that's really great to know, because if you're able to essentially have that domain name, in this case tunnel.com is the hacker's authoritative DNS server, right? Then what will happen, will the tunnel.com will pass the password over here, and we can just read through this here because I feel like this explains it a lot better than I can. An attacker registers a domain name, for example, tunnel.com. So they register the domain name tunnel.com. Attacker sets up a tunnel.com NS record, points to a server that the attacker controls. So they control the NS record name server. So 3, the malware or the attacker sends sensitive data from the victim's machine to the domain name that they control. For example, password tunnel.com, where the password is a data that needs to be transferred. Okay, so then they send sensitive data from the victim's machine here to the domain name they control. Okay, the DNS request is sent through the local DNS server, right? So the DNS request sent through the local DNS server here and is forwarded through the internet. And the attacker's authoritative DNS malicious server receives the DNS request. So it receives the DNS request with the data, and finally the attacker extracts the passwords from the domain name, right? So they extract the passwords from the domain name. And because this is happening all over port 53 over DNS, then it's the firewall will allow it through. And then another thing, because the local server, it doesn't know tunnel.com, it will send it to the request to the authoritative DNS server, and that is a way for exfil as well. So that's what they talk about. They go into more depth about how when you're exfilling the data via DNS, it has to be encoded with base 64, and that's what they do here. And then they essentially point that text file with sensitive data is just credit card information, and they'll point that towards the name. So here, get the required data that needs to be transferred to encode the file using one of the encoding techniques. So here's the data we want to transfer, credit card information, encode it with base64, send the encoded characters as a subdomain label, right? So t1.ton.com. Consider limitations of DNS protocol. Note that we can add as much data as we can to the domain name, but we must keep the whole URL under 255 characters. Each subdomain label can't exceed 63 characters, so the T1 that couldn't exceed 63 characters. If we do exceed these limitations, we split the data, sending more DNS requests. And you'll see in this example, that's exactly what they have to do. They have to split it just to get, just to send that. Okay. So now that you guys have understood that, now let's go ahead, and I'm just going to read through this so you guys can understand it. Also, I'm under the clock here, so I only have an hour to go over this before this time's out. So now let's try and perform DNS data exfiltration techniques in the provided network environment. This section aims to transfer the contents of the cred.txt from the victim2 to the attack boxer to the attack box. We will use the att.tunnel.com name server pointing to the newly added machine, the attacker machine. Important. You can use the attack box for this task, but ensure to update the DNS records and add an NS record that points to your attack box IP address, or use the pre-configured name server att.tunnel.com for the attack machine. The first thing to do is to make the attacker machine ready to receive any DNS requests. Let's connect to the attacker machine through SSH, which can be done from the jump box using the following credentials. So first you have to get to the jump box, right? So you can see here they're in the jump box. They don't specify that, so that might confuse somebody who's new to this. So what I did was, SSH in them into the jump box. So here I'm in the jump box, right? And again, that's going to be the IP address here. So you just take that IP address, SSH into it, right? I'll just type it out again for you. 215.78. All right, and then let me put the username in there. Them. All right, and then you SSH in. Okay, I'm already SSH'd in, so you can see that. And we've already run a test to make sure DNS is working from our jump box, right? So now that we've tested that, now let's go ahead and SSH into the attacker box, right? So we're moving into, and we're connecting to another computer here. So SSH THM attacker.them.com. All right, so now I'm going to SSH into the attacker box, and let's see if that works. And it's asking for the password, so TRYHACKME is the password, and then I'm in. So now from the attacker box, we are then going to, in this case, from the attack box using this IP address and port as follows. So then we're going to SSH using this IP address and port that they've provided. So I'm going to show you this, and why don't we just walk through it? I really wasn't going to do this, but I want you to learn. So another reason for you to like and subscribe. So here I'm going to go ahead and paste that in, and I'll press enter. And pretty much from this point on, I'm pretty much going to be pasting in the stuff here. If you want to type it out, by all means, I'd rather not. So, and then from there, I'm into the them attacker. So from the jump box to the attacker box, okay? And then from here, in order to receive any DNS requests, we need to capture the network traffic for any incoming UDP 53 packets using TCP dump. So essentially we're setting up TCP dump to listen for any traffic coming on port 53, okay? And so I'm just gonna paste that in here, and then I'm gonna copy that. And I'm gonna come over here, and I'm just gonna paste that in. So we can essentially have our attack box, in this case, quote unquote, listening using TCP dump. 453, or at least just gathering traffic, which isn't kind of like, it's not like Netcat, but it's just gathering traffic from that port. Once the machine is ready, we can move to the next step, which is to connect to our victim 2 machine through SSH, which could be done from the jump box using the followed credentials. So then, okay, from now you have to go from the jump box to, and let me just move this because I'm pretty sure I don't want to confuse anybody who's looking at that. That's something else. This is the next task, but you're just focused on these two screens. This one is the attack box, quote unquote, listening to port 53, just gathering DNS traffic. And then here we are going to SSH into the jump box. Okay, so SSH into the jump box. 15.78. And I always forget to put the username in front. Just make sure you put THM @ and then run it. And then TRYHACKME as the password. And then we're in the jump box. Now we've got to get from the jump box to the victim box. So they got this victim 2 here and they provided you the credentials. So we're just gonna copy that. And I'm gonna come over here. I'm just gonna paste that in here. And I'm gonna copy that. I'm gonna minimize this, go over here, paste this in, and SSHing to the victim box. And the password is the same, TRYHACKME. Okay. So now I'm in the victim box. Now, okay, now from the victim box, what I'm gonna do is, let's see here. This is from our TalkBox machine using as followed. TalkBox. Okay. On the victim machine, there is a okay. So it looks like they want us to open up another one from the attack machine, using this one instead now. So sure, we'll just follow the instructions, and we'll just we'll again go to the jump box and then go to the attack box because that's just the way you need to do it. I just did that a second ago, so let me scroll up here. Cool. So I can see the IP address I used earlier for the jump box, 215.78. And of course I forgot my username as well here. THM @ TRYHACKME. All right. And then we're going to try this. We're going to then go to the attack box, which is actually, oh, attack box. Oh, okay. Because this is the attack box, isn't it, down here? That's victim 1. This is them attacker. Okay, so I think this one right here, attack box, is going to be your machine actually. Let's see. Well, it wouldn't resolve to that. Attack box. All right, let's just try this. I'm just gonna paste this in, actually. Paste it over here. Copy that. Minimize this and put this here. Run it. Yes. TRYHACKME. Victim 2. Okay, so that takes me to victim 2. Okay. So it looks like I was already in victim 2. Just had me do that again. I don't know why. All right, so I don't think we need 2 victim 2s, right? Yeah. So I'm just gonna actually minimize this one. I'm just gonna, yeah, I'll minimize it. So I was actually already in victim 2. So I went from the jump box to victim 2 here. So we'll use this session here. I already had it open. I was a little confused there. So from victim2, it wants us to cat a credit.txt file. So let's go ahead and cat it. This is going to be, this is going to show you that there's credit card information in that file. So what I'll do is I'll come over here, I'll just paste that in, we'll cat that file out. And you can see there's credit card information in here. So what it wants us to do next is encode it using base64. Because like I mentioned earlier, when you're sending stuff across DNS, you can't, it has to be base64. So I'm going to just grab this command, I'm going to copy that, come down here, paste it in to my victim2 session. And then I'm going to press enter. And then you can see it's encoded in base64. Now that we have the base64 representation, we need to split it into one or multiple DNS requests depending on the output length, DNS limitations, and attach it to a subdomain name. Let's show both ways. Okay, so they're splitting this up because it exceeds the maximum values. So due to the DNS limitations that they described above, we have to split this up, okay? So we're gonna run the command that they provided here to split that up. All right, we'll just paste that in. And copy that, go over here, paste that in, boom. Get rid of that space. Okay, so now it's split it up, right? In the previous command, we read the file contents and encoding using base64, then we clean up the string. And so now we're just going to clean it up, and we are going to base64. So now we're just going to clean it up, and instead of the spaces, you're going to have dots that we're going to replace it. And so we'll copy this command here, which will essentially, I'll just read through this. I'm cleaning up by removing new lines and gathering every 18 characters as a group. Finally, we append the name of the server, att.tunnel.com for each group. Let's check the other way, where we send a single DNS request, which can be used for data exfiltration. This time, we split every 18 characters with a dot, and adding the name server similar to what we did in the previous command. Yep, and that was pretty similar to what we just did. So we'll just go ahead and paste that in. I'm going to grab this, I'm going to paste this down here, and then it will create that same output you see there. All right, don't copy over this output, just everything from here. Okay, from the next victim2 machine, we send the base64 as a subdomain name with considering the DNS limitations. Okay, so then send that, okay. With some adjustments to the single DNS request, we create and add a dig command to send it over DNS, and finally we pass it to the bash to be executed. If we check the attacker's TCP terminal, we should receive data we sent from victim2. Okay, so we're getting that ready in base64, we are sending it, and we're executing it with the bash command. Okay, so I'll copy that and just paste that here. Grab that, paste this in here, and send that. Okay, so now if I minimize this, you'll see from the attacker box that we actually received the output here. So like I mentioned earlier, you had a TCP dump listener, basically TCP dump gathering data coming across port 53. And here you can see it's captured that base64 encoded credit card information here. Now, essentially all you need to do now is decode this base64 to get the credit card information. Okay, so from this box up here, I can just go ahead and stop the listener on my attack box. Stop the TCP dump, I mean. All right, let me go Control-C, I guess. I can stop that. Yeah, I Control-C'd it. And next we are going to echo the encoded value. And it should, so we'll just do echo here and see if it runs. Or it doesn't. Okay, that's fine. we will just, because we know that's the encoded value, I know that they have that same value here, so I can just actually grab this, because this is the command we need. It's going to echo the base 64 and allow TCP dump to clean and retrieve the data by removing unwanted strings and finally decoding the values back to base 64 as followed. All right, so I'm just gonna come here, I'm just gonna paste this in, grab this, copy that, and paste that in here. Press enter, and now you can see the credit card data is here. So now we've exfilled the credit card data via DNS, as you see here. So now for this next portion, CT communication. So we're essentially doing the same thing, except this time we are first going to create a Python script, or no, this isn't a bash. This is a bash script. So first we're going to create this this script that, if you're looking at, will ping one time the test.them.com. Okay. And then, of course, because we're sending it over DNS from the victim machine, we have to encode it with base 64. Okay. So we can actually do this because this ties into the flag. So for these two, you can put in 64 for the maximum value of subdomains. And then for the fully qualified domain name, it must not exceed 255 characters, as I mentioned above. And for this flag right here, I'll show you how to get it. So now that we've done this, I guess I could just show you from where we left off here. So you're still in the victim machine, you're still in the attack box machine. So from the victim machine, what you need to do is you need to go ahead and create a bash script, right? And if you don't know how to create a bash script, no worries, just watch me. So from victim to machine, what I'm gonna do is I'm then going to do a print working directory, pwd. All right, so the pwd command will show that I am in the home them directory. All right, so I want to get to the temp directory because, as you see here, they want us to cat the temp script.sh, and we should have this script in the temp directory. So I'll have to cd into that. So I'll cd into /temp. Okay, now that I'm in the temp directory, you can do an ls if you want to check to see if the script.sh is actually in there. In my case, it is in there because I put it there. But in your case, it's not going to be there. So I'm going to show you how to make it. So you're going to have to nano, because nano is the best tool to use. Okay, not Vim. Everyone loves nano. Hey, I know there's going to be an argument in the comment section now, but I like nano. I really do. And I'll show you how to use it. So if you're not familiar with it, just follow along. Okay. And next we're going to make script.sh. And then we're going to create this script, which is going to be the commands that they provide us here. We're going to input that here. Okay. So you input all that here. You can paste it if you want. And then once you're done, you're going to hold the control key and the O as an Oscar. Control O. That's going to, oops, that's not what I wanted. All right, so from here, let me just move this a little bit here. We're going to control O. And then it's going to ask us a file name to write. And for this one, we're just going to click enter. And this is saving it. And then after you save it, you're going to click Control X at the same time. Okay. And that closes the nano file. Okay. So once it's closed, we've created our script and everything. Then we can go ahead and just grab this. And this is when we're copy and pasting again. We can just grab this command that they want us to grab. And we could just paste it here. All right. And then we could paste it into victims 2's terminal here. And we're going to go ahead and encode this bash script into base 64. Because like I mentioned earlier, if you're transferring anything over DNS, it has to be in base 64, right? And then they're saying, okay, go into this DNS site and go ahead and set it up so that script.tunnel.com has a text record associated with it, and the text value is the value of the base64 encoded data. All right, I feel like I sound so smart saying that, but it's really not that difficult. All right, so let's see. We're going to just come over here. They provide us this IP address. Mine is going to be, for the DNS site, it's going to be 10.10.215.78. And you see here, then DNS changer. So I click here. You can add a record. I'm going to add a record. And we want this to be a text record. And like I mentioned earlier, Windows 2019 server, for example, will usually have DNS, and then you'll be able to choose records and make records. Like, this is just a GUI way of doing it, I guess. And then you have your script name, so you could name your script. And so they want us to name it script.tunnel.com. So, we could, example, this could be mcdonalds.com, right? But the subdomain here is like script.tunnel.com. And then for the text value, you need to make sure that it looks like that. So if you look at the encoding that we did earlier, you can see this was the value. You can see it didn't put the quotes around it, but you can just do that manually. So you can just copy this and then put the quotes around it, because you need the quotes around it, obviously. Oh, it's just, okay. And then I'm gonna put the quotes in, and let's see how we're doing on time, because I don't want this to time out on me. Okay, 43 minutes left. Okay, so plenty of time. So now I'm going to grab that value. I'm going to paste it in here. You can see I didn't put the quotes, so I'll just put the quotes in the first and last message here. And then I'm going to save it. And then it should say it's been saved. And this isn't going to help you. This isn't going to get you the flag, okay? I'll show you how to get the flag. But this is helping to like reinforce the concept so you understand it, right? And so now it says that's successful. So now what happens when you run a dig command to look at that record? What does it do? Well, it actually executes a ping command, right? That's what happens. So we're just going to do that and put that in there and execute it and see what happens here. And for me, it returned the value. Oh, whoops, did I do the wrong one? Oh, actually, when I did a dig command, it returned the base64 encoded. So that's how I know it worked. So when it resolved that DNS text entry, it resolved it to the base64 encoding like it should have. So now what we're going to do is we're going to run this, and now we clean the output, and you're running this all from the victim2 machine. So you don't really need the attack. You don't need this window anymore. So we can just kind of hover this over. And we don't really need this either, because I've kind of just explained it to you from top to bottom, right? So you really just need to be focused on this window here, right? So I'll just move this over here. And so now what happens? We clean the output before executing the script, tr, and delete any double quotes. Then we decide the base64 text representation by adding the base64d, and finally pass the contents to the bash command, right? So you're decoding base64. You're doing a dig to get the text value, then you're decoding the base64, and then you're running with the bash commands. It's very simple. And so I'm going to grab this, copy it, and I'm just going to paste it in here. And then I'm going to come down here. I'm going to paste it in here to victim2. And now you can see there's a ping has executed, right? It's executed a ping, because after it decoded the base64, what did it do? It commanded it to run a ping. So now we get this ping. So that worked, right? But then you're like, well, Danny, how are we going to get the flag tunnel.com? Well, let me show you, young padded one. No, I'm just playing. I'm a padded one too. So let's see here. We are going to essentially just run a dig on it. But before we run the dig, we're going to have to input a flag value. So I actually we'll we'll actually, yeah, we'll run the dig first, right? So let's try that. We'll grab this code, we'll just grab this right here, right? I'll come over here, Control A to highlight everything, backspace to delete what's in the clipboard, paste this in, and then it wants us to find flag tunnel.com. So I'm gonna go in here and I'm gonna just input flag, and then we got tunnel.com, right? Because that's a subdomain. I'm gonna grab this, copy that, I'm gonna come over here, I'm gonna paste it into my terminal, and I'm gonna run enter. And then it's gonna provide me this value here, right? Guess what? This is encoded in base 64. And so it looks like that's set. So while I don't really need to do this, I'm gonna show you how this all came to light. And so we are going to open up Firefox again. And I'm going to go back up. This would stop moving. I'm going to open it and I'm going to go to the IP address for the DNS service here that we have running. 215.78. Come over here and you see active tunnel, add record. We want to add text, of course, and then we are going to make this one flag.tunnel.com. And you can see I've already done this, so it's already in there. And then for this value here, we are going to take the encoded value that we received when we did dig command to resolve that text value. So I'm going to come over here, grab that returned value that they gave us, and then I'm going to paste it here. Okay. And then I'm going to go ahead and save it. And it's going to do its thing. It's going to save that, and then we're going to minimize that. All right, great. So now when I run this, and by the way, you're probably like, what's in this base 64 encoded value? Like, I'm interested, right? So if you're interested, you can take it, right? You can copy it. You can put it in a base 64 decoder like I did here, and you can see the value of that is bash. See users local bin flag. So it looks like it's running a flag.sh script that's then going to print out the flag value. So that's what that is. Let's go over here, paste this in here, and then we paste this last command here, with the difference being that we have to type in flag tunnel.com, right? So this says script tunnel.com. We're gonna have to change that to flag tunnel.com. And then from there, you can go ahead and copy this over here. So just paste it in there. You see it says flag.tunnel.com. We'll run this, and then boom, now you got your flag. So congratulations, you completed this. You have your flag here. You can go ahead and paste it over here. As always, I will include the flag in the description of the video because you guys are awesome. Do me a favor, please. I don't ask for money. I don't ask for anything crazy. I just ask that you please subscribe. I am trying to get at least 300 subscribers, eventually 1,000 or more, right? That's the goal. Help me reach that goal. Thank you. All right. Okay. Well, I hope you liked this video. Danny out.